And welcome to the American Conference preview, because it is not the American Athletic Conference no more. It is just all American. I am a real American. Fight for what's right for every man. How are we doing? Elliot, Trevor, good to see you guys again. 3 days in a row talking conference previews.
Yes, sir. Ready. This is going to be a fun conference, per usual.
Hell yeah, I am ready as well. Finally can kind of dig deep into just kind of one conference, and I'm excited for it. You know, it's always fun going to conferences at night, but it seems like sometimes we got to quickly go through some teams when we have those bigger slates of teams in those two conferences. So excited to dive into just 13 teams tonight.
Yeah, it'd be nice to just get it all in an hour. Less timestamps for you, less slides. Doesn't always mean it gets done, though, because we are busy, as we all know and love. American just did the name change, which is always interesting. Full-blown just American Conference now, so mad respect to that. This represents America, baby. Kind of all over. You got teams out west in Texas, teams on the East Coast, teams in the Midwest, teams down south. So, yeah, kind of represented outside of the West Coast, I guess. And it's always been a competitive conference with your namesakes up at the top, but then always your random darlings that takes off, which is good. Yeah, I mean, you got Memphis, UAB, North Texas. I mean, they've always had good, talented teams, and I mean, Wichita State, for instance, Tulane, Temple. I mean, these are good programs. And now that you are in the American Conference and a decent football conference also, flex your basketball muscle every once in a while, because you've produced really good talent lately.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also, you mentioned the name change. They also introduced their first mascot of the conference, Soar the Eagle. So if anybody wants to do a kind of a deep dive and look up Soar the Eagle, they also followed the new branding with their first mascot for the conference.
I mean, absolute stellar. This conference tournament's played in Birmingham. We will have a full slate there, and we have 13 teams in the American Conference. So mad respect to the American Conference. Any final thoughts before we dive in?
Nope.
Yeah, for me, just two coaching changes here. You got Brian Hodgson coming over to UCF with that unfortunate and unexpected passing of Amir Abdur-Rahim last year at UCF. And then you also have Daniel Robinson taking over for Ross Hodge there at North Texas.
Yeah, definitely some coaching changes, and then obviously your stays as well, and your OGs now into this conference, but maybe can't get out of the first round of the tournament at all. So,
yeah, and not to mention, the other, thing that's a little bit fresher on the more of the tragic side was that tragic accident with Greg Glenn III there at Tulane in that drowning accident over the summer. So it's going to be a tough season for Tulane as they kind of dealt with that in the summer. And just thoughts and prayers to the whole Tulane basketball team and to Greg Glenn's family, friends and family, and everybody close to him there. So just a unfortunate accident that happened.
Unfortunate indeed. Could be a catalyst for a come-together moment for a locker room, I guess, to do it for Greg. So, yes, sorry, and prayers out to that. That matter. Wide open kind of league. I mean, I think Memphis kind of runs it, of course, but you do have a wide open league with random talent spread all across. So I think a lot of 500 teams at stake here, and the lower half of the teams are pretty bad. So I think we can just jump right into it. Those that are new here, We're the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. We're talking all conferences, every team, 366 teams mentioned, every conference mentioned. This is our 21st conference preview. Tomorrow we're finishing 23 or 22 and 23. And then next week we'll chop them all down and then leave the final 5 to the P5. So tune into us this rest of the October. Thanks for tuning in. If you're back again, we appreciate you. Love your takes, love your hazes. Whatever you got for us, we'll take it. And this is the Pump Fake Pod. That's Elliot Money at I'm_Money, at Trevor at Stooley Picks, and then myself at Michael_Huffer3. Make sure to like and subscribe. This is the American Conference preview. All right, the Charlotte 49ers out of Charlotte, North Carolina last season, 11-20, 3-15 in the American. Only bring back one returning starter under Aaron Fearn in his third year now after being 30-34. So a better first season, and then a little sophomore slump under Fearn. And just I think this is one of the least talented teams, unfortunately, in the American. You know, I don't think Fearn's necessarily a bad coach, but he just hasn't been able to have talent. And betting on Charlotte last year was abysmal. I mean, watching them last year was rough. They lacked depth. They lacked talent. And I think they're going to continue that, and it's going to translate into this year as well. They're super young. They only have I think they have the least amount of depth in the American Conference, and I just don't think they stack up very well at all. But they needed to get some rebounders, so I think they added some potential rebounders. Last year, they couldn't get any second chance opportunities. They would foul a lot down low because they couldn't rebound and play really defense. So they beefed up their front court, but I wouldn't say substantially at all. And I think we see them just again in that cellar dweller of the American Conference. Yeah, you know, definitely some big guys coming in, size added, but I don't think it's enough to get these 49ers under the edge, and they're still digging down there and chiseling away at the rocks or whatever 49ers do.
Yeah, no faith in Charlotte this year. Going to be rough. One returning starter. Added a bunch of size and whatnot that they didn't have last year, so I think they'll be a little bit better defensively and at the rim. But, you know, overall, what they brought in, it's really not anything to compete with in this this conference. I mean, this conference is really loaded. So, I mean, you brought in you brought in 3 guys that are 6'10", 6'11", and 7 foot. So that's a big plus. But outside of that, I mean, a couple of decent guards, but nothing that's really eye-popping or that's going to really make a difference for this team and be able to allow them to take a step forward to where they can compete for this conference. So I think they'll I don't have faith in this team. I have them at near the bottom. Not a big fan of this roster. I think Fern's still figuring it out. So it's going to be another rough year for Charlotte.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, in his first year, he saw some success, and Coach Fern there, he really dealt with the issues of the NIL era and the portal transfer because he lost 3 transfers to the Power 5 after that first season, and then he didn't really understand or realize the work that it took to get those pieces back that were missing. And you kind of witnessed what happened last year. You know, they gave up opponents shot 56.4% inside the arc against them last year. That was good for like in the 330s of 366 teams. So that's why he tried to address this size issue. And I think, you know, while he addressed size, I'm not sure if he addressed the talent with the size. You know, like you had mentioned, Trevor, 6'10", 6'11", 7'2" guy from Providence. All of them were guys that didn't really necessarily play a lot. I don't know how talented they are. The one guy that I would say that is maybe talented that they added with size is Khalil Medine. He was at Norfolk State, averaged 7 points, 4 rebounds. So I think he could be a good piece for them. They're definitely going to rely heavily on Kylan Blackman, returning guard from last year, who averaged about 7.5 points. They did bring in a couple guards that I like to mention in terms of Damani Harrison from South Indiana, Dezane Mingo from Marshall, and then Major Freeman from Siena. So I think they brought some some good guards from the mid-major ranks. However, it's more of a those mid-major guys are taking a step up. The American is a sneaky conference with the talent, the size. I think one of the coaches when I was looking at something said it best. I'm not quite sure what coach it was, but he basically said, the American has power, force, size, and athleticism. It just lacks the talent. And so what they do is they bring those pieces in and they kind of develop them and they see them off and see them on their way. So, I think it's going to be a significant step up for those guards that they brought in, and we'll see how they can handle the stresses of a American conference. But yeah, I agree. I'm kind of right there with you guys. I think they're bottom tier of this conference. I think he did address the things that he needed to. However, still talent wise, I'm not quite sure it's going to get it done and the pretty talented American overall.
All right. Pump Fake Pod, not too high on Charlotte. Not a fan of their airport either. East Carolina Pirates, Greenville, North Carolina last season, 19-14, 10-8 in the American Conference, tied for 5th. It was a big jump for East Carolina, man, under Michael Schwartz, 50-49 through 3 years, and a just good old classic logo right there. They were really effective. They lose 2 major pieces, though. But they do bring back Jordan Riley, a 6'4" senior who averaged almost 15 points per game. He's really found his stride with the Pirates, and I think he's going to just take even a bigger jump and have a ton of possession usage for these Pirates under Schwartz as well. And you bring back another starter and Jay Shane Woodard as well, who can play down low. He can also shoot the ball, play at the perimeter, and kind of and play defense and get out into transition quickly. So I think with Woodard and Riley kind of running the floor there, it'd be a little interesting. And then you also have Travion LeBeau, needs to be able to step into a bigger role. So a ton of front court or back court availability with the lacking front court. I think size-wise, we're going to have to see people step into different roles down low. They're going to have to go to a lot of inexperience down low. Ton of freshmen and sophomore playing while we have kind of in the backcourt a little more experience. So I'm kind of interested in this East Carolina team. I think they're certainly a wild card that can be at the middle. I think Schwartz is a good coach. And they can definitely win games. But we're going to see just, again, maybe a lack of scoring like we did last year a ton of times. You just never know with this team. Certainly a major wild card. But I do love East Carolina. They play tough. They play physical. And I think they're going to be in the middle half of this conference yet again. So, I guess I'll shout out one more piece in the front court. Giovanni Amuru. From George Mason, 6'10", 270 pounds. So he'll make an immediate impact and hopefully can lead the front court versus some of those young guys that I mentioned and worries about the inexperience playing that position on such a physically based team. Excuse me. So yeah, I like East Carolina. I think they'll be just above average and solid.
Yeah, Schwartz, good coach. I like him. 2 returning starters, 3 returning senior players, which is huge. Brought in 3 freshmen. One of them played pro ball in Australia, so he should be fairly well up to speed considering he played at a higher level, and we should be used to this. They've got a lot of potential, but it's just a matter of how they'll mesh. But Schwartz is a good coach. I'm a fan of his. I know his record doesn't look amazing, but he's a good coach. He gets the most out of these teams, and sometimes they fall a little short at the end, but they do find themselves competing in a lot of games. So I think they added the right amount of pieces, just a couple of young guys, but they did bring back three seniors to kind of help guide them along. So big fan. I mean, he's a good coach. I lean towards the fact that they'll figure it out more than they'll flop. Just due to the coach, and I'm a fan of him, and he's fiery, and he gets what he wants out of these guys. So I think ECU will be a respectable team this year. I don't know if they'll finish top 5 again, but I do think they'll be a respectable team that could catch anybody on any given night.
Yeah, I think Coach Schwartz there is a hell of a coach. You look at last year. maybe his record doesn't show 50-49. Just how good he is. I mean, last year, they were 19-14. Those 19 wins are the second most wins in program history for an ECU team. So they're not a very proud program when it comes to basketball. He also had 10 conference wins. It was the second time in the last 60 years that the ECU has had double-digit wins in conference play. So the fact that he's been able to kind of turn around that program and do that within, these first 3-4 years, really impressive. You guys made great points on touching on the pieces that they bring back and some pieces they bring in. That guy that you mentioned, Trevor, in Australia, that's the highest level. That's the NBL. That's like the NBA of the Australia League. So I do think he's going to be able to make an immediate impact. One guy that I'll kind of, two guys actually that I'll kind of talk about, Isaiah Mbang. He came from William & Mary, averaged 5 points, 2 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He is the brother of the Mbang from Yale. He's kind of a pass-first guard, and that was something that really stood out to Coach Schwartz when he brought him in this summer. And then the other guy that they're going to think is their probable kind of point guard starter is Corey Kalkner. He comes from Eastern Florida State. It's a JUCO. He actually was given an offer to Louisville, and then Louisville actually then signed the number 2 overall point guard out of the 2025 class. Kind of didn't need him anymore, so they revoked it, and ECU was able to get him. So Coach Schwartz is gonna rely significantly upon him, and I really expect, like you had mentioned with Jordan Riley and Jayshon Woodard alongside, if Corey Kaltner can kind of make that transition from the JUCO level there here in the American, I expect ECU to be dangerous and to maybe, repeat the similar success that they had last year, but maybe push to get that 20-win mark, something that's unheard of there in Greenville, North Carolina. So I think they're excited about what Coach Schwartz has for this team and just kind of the future of this team and what he's done in the first couple of years there at the helm.
Football school transitioning to basketball. Florida Atlantic, Boca Raton, Florida, last season 18-16, American Conference 10-8, tied for 5th. 0 returning starters for Mr. John Jacobs. I thought Jacobs did a good first year. I mean, definitely not Dusty May and that filling big shoes, but I think he did a good job. I mean, we saw Florida Atlantic play no defense, so it's a Jacobs style kind of offense, just kind of run and gun. Let's see what happens. But you lose a ton of pieces in the transfer portal, 0 returning starters. So now you had to go diving a little bit, and you're playing tougher teams in the non-con, just not even as bye games, but just because you had made the Final Four and had potential and started playing these games and scheduling these games a little more seriously. So you do bring back Nicolo Moretti and Devin Vanderpool. So, I mean, these guys kind of were more role players. So I have to think that they'll have to be able to step into a major role like we talk about a lot. But I think FAU really has a talent issue here, man. I think they really have a talent issue. And I'm really worried about Florida Atlantic to see if they're able to compete. But I think bringing in a lot of pieces from overseas helps. They add a ton of addition that can score a lot. So I think they're going to just be able to score again at conditioning and practicing this whole summer under Jacobs' system. And I trust that he can win. But in a tougher conference like the American, you got to wonder how many games can you win, because although, you finish 18-16, I think it's going to be a similar kind of season for Florida Atlantic, just with that style of play and their volatility with the offense.
Yeah, no returning starters. I mean, Trey Carroll, Baba Miller, Volkatitis, and Caleb Glenn leaving definitely hurt, but they brought in 2 experienced guards to bolster what was left on the roster. So they got some guys that have played and know what they're doing. So I like that they addressed that immediately. And they also brought in some overseas bigs. They were like 6'10", 7 foot or something. So and Junis having or Jacques having history with the international ball, it's not surprising he brought those in, and I think they'll be a good fit. A lot of high major talent on this team too. They did bring in a bunch of power 4 guys, so I think that'll be a huge boost for this team. Last year was good, but it was ended up being a lot of Baba Miller. whatever he did. That's kind of how this team went. But they've got the talent to make a run. Majority of this roster is entirely just portal players, so we'll see how they all mesh together. But there's a lot of talent, and if they can figure it out and mesh together, I think FAU can find themselves hanging around the top 3 in this conference this year. Otherwise, if they don't, I see them kind of maybe middle of the pack. But I do think the high upside of this team, if it all meshes, is a top 3 finish in the conference.
Oh, wow. Elliot.
Yeah, so like you had said, you would expect that it was a decent year for Jacobs last year. When you look at it on paper, though, this is the most wins ever for a first-year head coach at FAU. The fact that he was disappointed in this, was rightly shown. Shows kind of what he wants to be, or what he wants to be, and what he wants this program to be. Kind of reach that Dusty May type of a team and be, competitive, have those 25 plus win seasons year in and year out. So I like the fact that, while he was decent last year, he wasn't comfortable, or he wasn't okay with the results, which rightly so, especially after, the years of Dusty May before him. I think last year, kind of the biggest thing, and just to kind of sum it up, where the bigs were the bigs in the front court were fantastic, and the guards just struggled, and that's kind of what happened down the stretch when they lost like 6 of their last 8 games, or around there. The guards really struggled to produce, and they showed it. The bigs showed out, and then as we see in the portal era, you lose players to Xavier, Cincinnati, Texas, and Michigan State, and so they lost all that front court production, and now they got to repeat all that. I'm interested to see your take on Kanan Carlisle. I know he was at Indiana last year, kind of had a disappointing season just with injuries and things like that. I'm curious to see what you think, or how he'll produce at this level, coming down from the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, this level is probably a little better, but he stinks. He can't shoot the ball. He needs to be able to shoot the ball. But, I mean, maybe they can get running. I'm not going to write him off. So, yeah, but he needs to be able to shoot the ball.
Yeah, and like Trevor said, brought in the bigs. The bigs they brought in were overseas guys, and the freshmen, a couple guys, one guy from France and another guy from Overtime Elite. It's kind of proven that Jacobs was able to find those bigs and find those guys from last year, as he had those guys that then eventually just transferred out. And one kind of big thing that I noticed, just off of the interviews and stuff, is he says he really wants to even push the pace even faster. I know they averaged about 82, 83 points a game last year, and he says he wants his team to be scoring in 90 plus points a game. So expect for FAU to play very fast, to increase the pace from last year. And so I would think they kind of addressed the issues they needed, which was depth at the guard level and the front court, to be able to push that pace. I think they'll play 10 deep probably. And I think we may see them, creep up to that 88, 89, 90 type points per game. So expect high scoring affairs here for the FAU Owls.
All right. The Memphis Tigers out of Memphis, Tennessee, last season, 26-7, 16-2 in the American, 0 returning starters. That is a familiar sight we're going to see in this conference. And Penny Hardaway, 162 and 67, 7 years, so entering his 8th year. And man, should I say it? They're destined for the first round bump, one and done. Not even maybe a one and done, because they don't even get a win. So an appearance, I don't know. I don't really know, but that's kind of what their ceiling's been. But they did do a good job in the portal this year. You go and get Doug McDaniel from Kansas State, which I'll let Elliot touch on a little bit. But my favorite portal grab is Sincere Parker from McNeese State. I think he's going to be an absolute dog, and I think he's going to transition very well. You also grab Hassan Abdul Hakim from UTRGV, which was a baller. He was balling in those bye games, balling for Rio Grande. So great scorers there. Penny, he likes the scorers. He likes the guards, of course, being able to work with them. And then, he has his son on his team as well. So there's a little different added factor. And then you also bring in Julius Thedford as well, from Western Kentucky, which I think is solid. He comes back from an injury from against Middle Tennessee State last year in January. So a lot of pieces added. Again, great guard play. It's just going to be, can they get physical down low? Can they get back? They're going to be able to get back on defense. And as much as we give Penny shit, that record stands for itself. He can win games. He knows how to coach. I think people rally behind Penny, and even when they're down and out, they don't quit and whatnot. So I think they're able to, be able to have tons of scoring options. And I'm really excited for this Memphis team. And again, they're going to be the favorites for this conference, of course, and a little chalk play in the American.
Yeah. I mean, they lost basically everybody. Cisse, Danger, Haggerty, 13 transfers and 2 freshmen. And I mean, this is a complete overhaul of a team. And I mean, Danger was a huge part of that team last year. I know he may not have gone off nuclear points wise, but inside the paint, he really dominated it. And now you got to replace him. And Haggerty was a 20+ points a game scorer. So it's going to be tough to replace, but they brought in a good mix of high major and mid major players. Doug McDaniel, Sincere Carey, Quante Berry, and others, which, on paper look pretty good, but filling that 20-point a game hole, and then the paint dominance that Danger had and enforced, I think it's going to be a tough one to replace. I just feel like them and FAU are fairly similar, just given what they brought in, the overhaul of their core players and everything. I think they're kind of fairly similar now. Obviously, you could argue Penny Hardaway, better coach. He's a little bit more a staple in this league, so you got to give him the edge there. But I wouldn't be shocked if Memphis kind of slipped up a little bit and finished 3rd or 4th in this conference. I don't think they're going to be terrible where they sit in the middle or anything, but I think they, a top 5 finish will be a success given how much they lost. And the other talent in this conference, not entirely there, but it's still solid.
First only, Memphis is. I mean, they've won.
What's that?
Their expectations are first.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know that, but they lost everybody in these key players. I think it's going to be tough.
Like the outright favorite. I'm just saying, like, that's their expectations. They'd be pissed if they finished 6th or 5th.
Yeah, I don't think they're finishing outside top 5, and top 5 is worst case scenario. But I wouldn't be shocked if they don't win it this year. Just given the complete overhaul, and now you got to figure out everything, and these guys got to get accustomed to this team and everything else. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But I think Memphis obviously will still be contending for the American. But if they took a little step back, I wouldn't be shocked this year.
Yeah, my counterpoint to that, Trev, is Penny's used to doing this. Last year they only returned 1 scholarship player, and they overhauled, brought in 13 new guys last year, and look what they did: 16-2, first in the conference. So now similar thing here. You have no returning players. Got 13 transfers, 2 freshmen. Freshmen aren't going to play, so he brought in 13 transfers, and high level transfers at that for the most part. I kind of agree with you though in the fact that I don't necessarily think that they will win it possibly. But I think they're either 1, 2, or 3. I don't think they're off the podium at all. But a couple guys I'll touch on. Doug McDaniel. We kind of did this flip-flop trade. PJ Haggerty for Doug McDaniel. I think we definitely won that trade. So thank you, Memphis, for PJ Haggerty. I'll take the locker room cancer, which is known as Doug McDaniel, and kind of get rid of him. He's a very exciting player, averaged 11.6 assists last year, improved on the defensive end under Coach Tang, surprisingly. Had about almost 1.5, 2 steals a game. Led our team in steals. Very kind of pesky guy, but I think he fits the system perfectly for Memphis. They're going to want to rely on the guard play to push the ball up the floor, get open shots, run and gun type of a style. And so I think he's going to fit the system. But yeah, I'll definitely take PJ Haggerty over Doug McDaniel. So I appreciate the NIL trade per se. But yeah, I'm also high on Sincere Parker. Another guy that I'm really high on too is Aaron Bradshaw. Comes from Ohio State. I think he's, was kind of misused last year at Ohio State. Just didn't really fit the system personally in my mind. I think he's going to be more of a guy that's going to be able to set that pick and roll, kind of get the ball, score it with the ball when it's in his hands, type of a guy. And I think he's going to take a big step up this year. And if he's a guy that's going to, take that next step forward as he should, as being one of those top 50 players in high school, I expect them to be, the most talented team here in the American. However, I think there's maybe a couple teams that can pose them problems. And but yeah, I'm really high on Memphis, as everybody should be here in the American. I mean, they've proven year in and year out they're going to finish at the top of the conference, and if not, it's going to be 2 or 3. So, like I said, not off the podium. However, I personally just foreshadow I don't have them winning the conference.
All right, spoiler alert. North Texas Mean Green out of Denton, Texas, last season 27-9, 14-4 in the American, and an improbable NIT run. And now you bring in a new regime of Coach Daniel Robinson, who comes in from Cleveland State, brings in a solid amount of pieces from Cleveland State as well. I believe 5 players total, 4 active players and one red shirt. So, if you're going to talk about transitioning when you're saying, hey, we want to keep the familiarity, like the whole continuity of what the Mean Green embodies, Cleveland State, this is a perfect transition. Heavy defense. They're going to be slow pace. This is what North Texas has been. And, Robinson's a proven winner. He won 20 games in his 3 seasons at Cleveland State. He made the CBI in all 3 seasons. And they did a good job going into the portal. You bring in a solid UTEP transfer in David Terrell. I really liked him last year. And you get Will McClendon from San Jose State, who was one of their best players on that team last year. So this North Texas team did a good job going into the portal. And I think you guys can touch on a couple other pieces, but retaining that talent on Cleveland State was massive. Horizon talent going into the American, maybe not the best, but I think just because how deep defensive oriented they play, and Robinson being a proven winner, he'll be able to stay out of the cellar dweller and compete with some of these teams in the top half of the conference. I like North Texas this year and their style of play, translating similar to last year.
Yeah, bringing those 4 guys with you, huge help for them. No returning players, not a single player from this roster is back, so it's completely fresh. But that's why getting those 4 guys to come with you is huge. Just help build the culture, and 4 guys that know what are expected and what their role is. So I think that's a plus out the gate for having 0 returnees on this roster. But they got a lot of guards that can do a lot of great stuff, scoring and facilitating and defense and whatnot. So I think that'll be a help, but their front court's pretty small. I think 6'9". I forget the guy's name that he came with from Cleveland State is like one of their bigger players. So that could end up being just a detriment to this team, not having the size down low to attack on the boards and keep teams out of the paint. Maybe they do some gang rebounding things or whatever else to kind of clog the paint up and fight for rebounds. But regardless, the size is going to be an issue with the front court at some point, especially in this conference where there's a lot of bigs and big bigs, I guess, just 7-footers, 260s, and all this other stuff. So I'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I think they'll be all right. I don't think they're going to be second place like last year, but I think they'll find their way at some point. But I don't see them as a basement dweller. I kind of see them maybe a little below midway through the pack. But North Texas still great environment that should be able to help the team out and get a little boost, maybe catch a couple teams at home.
Yeah, defense travels, and it's going to travel here from Cleveland State to North Texas. It's going to fit that philosophy that North Texas fans are used to, so they're not going to see much of a switch up in terms of philosophy and style, like you had made a great point on, Huff. And they're in the exact same situation as Memphis, like Trev said. 0 returning starters, a little bit different in the fact that they're bringing over those 4 pieces from Cleveland State. I think he was talking about Dylan Arnett. He's kind of their big, averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds for him. Shot about 61% from the field last year. Was third team All Horizon and was also on the All Horizon defensive team. So I think they're going to really rely on him down low on the defensive end, but also facilitating offensively as well. Another guy that I'll kind of look forward to watching with them is David Terrell. Comes from UTEP. He was the Conference USA Rookie of the Year or Freshman of the Year last year. Averaged 8 points at UTEP and 4 assists. So I think he's another guard that's going to be able to be a defensive-minded guard, but also score and facilitate. And a couple other guys. Will McClendon comes from San Jose State. He's kind of a sharpshooter, averaged 12 points last year, shot about 37% from the three. I think he can be one of those 3-and-D type of players for Coach Robinson here. And then another guy that I think they're going to kind of rely upon is Demarion Watson, comes from Iowa State. Wasn't really super productive. He was just kind of on the bench, didn't really play much. But if you think about Iowa State's philosophy and just how defensive minded they are there, I think his game will translate really well as he takes a step back from the Power Five to the American. So pretty, I agree with you guys. I don't see them as a second place team. However, I think they're going to be great defensively. And anytime you can be great defensively, I think that's going to bode well for you. I see them finishing kind of middle of the pack. I don't think they're going to be in this bottom half.
All right. Talk about bottom half. Power bottom. Rice Owls, Houston, Texas, last season 13-19, 4-14 in the American, finished 12th. But you do bring back 2 returning starters and year 2 for Rob Lanier for the Owls. So I think Lanier is a good coach. No disrespect. I just think that they're not being able to translate into the AAC very well in transition. I think the American Conference. But, I think that's where they've been able to not be able to compete as much in football. I mean, even though they had a decent season last year, but just not being able to compete at all, especially in basketball. I think they're going to be able to win games, maybe improve upon their 4-14 record. But talent-wise, you really just struggle, especially in the front court. And you just kind of lack experience, where I just think that they have a ton of role players with guys that they're going to have to find their roles to fit into and being the lead guy. You do bring back returning starting point guard Trey Broadnaw, so he's a solid piece. He can dish it out. He can rebound. He kind of does it all. He's a stat stuffer, so he will be their main piece, so maybe even taking a big jump. But outside of that, they really lack depth, bringing in a couple pieces from Prairie View A&M, Vanderbilt, which is nice, Mount St. Mary's. So they went Portland, and they're also going into a little freshman class as well, too, to try to build for the future. So Lanier knows that he's got to build this up from the foundation, and that's starting from ground zero. So, I like what Lanier can do for the future for Rice, but this year it'll still be a step back, but maybe a small step up for the Owls. But that's not saying much, finishing 12th and 4-14.
Yeah, Rice, 2 returning starters. Lanier's back. The defense was improved as a top 5 in the conference in scoring defense, field goal percentage, and rebounding margin. They brought in some guard play and some guys that can run the offense from high majors and some low majors. So they addressed that issue a little bit, but they do have depth. But Lanier even said, like, if their offense has to take a little bit of a hit so they can maintain that defensive prowess, that's what they're going to do. So I mean, they have some on paper some good guards. They want to maintain that defensiveness. So if they can keep some solid offensive continuity and scoring the basketball, I could see them making a decent improvement, but I don't really have a lot of confidence given what they brought in. The low majors and just other mid majors, but none of these guys really stuck out on paper big to me. So I think they'll be fine. I think they'll make an improvement from last year, but I don't think Rice is going to be scary team where you kind of got to be on the lookout for. But I think their defense is going to be good again. I mean, if your coach comes out and says, I'd be willing to give up offense to maintain how good they were in defense, I think that's obviously going to be the primary focus. And that's what they're going to do, try to slow you down, make you take tough shots, work the clock, and not get you rebounds. So I think Rice defensively will be fine. I think that'll allow them to stay in some games and maybe catch some teams and win a few more, but I don't see them kind of hanging around the middle of the pack or anything. I think they could go up to a ninth or 10th at the best at the ceiling.
Yeah, Coach Lanier's kind of focused on defense, been kind of a defensive-minded coach, and I think that is something that he's going to continue to do and continue to kind of recruit the players needed to focus on that emphasis. And I agree with you, Trev. I think that's going to be able to keep them competitive in some of these games, especially at home. I'll mention Andrew Akuchi. He's a guy last year as a returner, 6'11" guy, averaged 6 points, 5 rebounds. I think he's going to have to take a major step forward and produce more. And I think Lanier is going to expect a lot more out of him. And then another guy I want to keep my eye on too as well is Jalen Smith. He was there last year, but he redshirted due to injury. He came actually from SMU, where Lanier had coached him there. Averaged 6 points, 2 rebounds, and shot 38% from the three at SMU. So I think there's another one of your guard pieces that can complement Trey Broadnax that you had mentioned, Mike. I think it's one of those things. It's a great thing to have to bring back a point guard who's been there, done that, and been in your system. That's just one of those kind of calming effects of a team when you can have that point guard that you already have on the roster. You don't have to find somebody and kind of reteach them to be that team leader. So I like that aspect of it. And then the other guy that I'll kind of talk about too is Steven Jiwa. He came from Texas A&M Corpus Christi, another kind of big man. Averaged about 6 points, 5 rebounds, shot 60% from the field. So I think, down low, he's focusing on efficiency, not only offensively down low, but also on the defensive end, trying to bring in guys that are tall, lanky, athletic, but can also, be very chippy and maybe not as the most talented group, but can be those guys that just kind of a junkyard dog mentality, grind you out defensively, and then find his guards that can really score and kind of keep them in the game. So I expect Rice to be feisty all throughout the American.
Yep, feisty could still get you 9th or 8th. And they do have good guards, by the way. Yeah, I like Babnow, but Temple Owls out of Philadelphia. Last season, 17-15, 9-9 in the 7th place position. 2 returning starters, though, for Adam Fisher, as this will be year 3 for Temple. Solid program. They always have been. You bring back big front court piece and Babatunde Dorodola. He's a solid addition to retainment, I should say. And then you also bring in a couple portal pieces and Jordan Mason from Illinois, Chicago. He'll be the starting point guard right away, it looks like. And then also Aiden Tobiasen, who could be at the wing there. So able to shoot the three, started 22 games last year. So I expect him to stay in the starting lineup most likely and not take a step back. But he will be going up with 6'5" senior from College of Charleston, AJ Smith, who can shoot the ball. He is a freshman, so I would expect Tobiasen to get the nod, but AJ Smith could be a solid backup there, and they have another great backup position at point guard from Alabama State and CJ Hines. So the right pieces in the portal to get a solid backcourt where I think that they lack down low. But I really like what Fisher is as a coach. I think he can get this Temple program back on track like it was with the Chaney days and just the last the years in between. So I love this Temple team. They've always been solid. They're definitely not gonna win the conference, but I think they're gonna be feisty just like they were last year. And the pieces that they brought in are super interesting, and I'm excited to see them gel in Philadelphia. So under Fisher's tenure, I think year 3 could be solid for Temple. I really like the Owls, and I think they definitely could be feisty as well.
Yeah, Temple, where you at? Yeah, two returning starters. Fisher putting a primary focus on the defense again this year. They were not super impressive last year, so that's going to be a main focus for this team. The guard play should be fine. It's the front court. They have 1 7-footer. Other than that, they're fairly small and got some new guys. So it's going to take some time to adjust. So front court going to be a little bit of a struggle. I think the guard play will be just fine. This is going to be similar to was that Rice? Yeah, Rice. North Texas this year. I think they're going to be somewhat similar teams. I think Temple, Fisher's been a feisty coach in his tenure. Not just here, but the other places he's been. So I think Temple will be. I think they'll be junkyard doggy. They'll be scratch and clawing. I don't know if they have another 7th place finish in them this year, given everything they lost and what size they're going to be lacking down low. But I don't see this team becoming a basement dweller. But I don't see them kind of hanging around 7th, 6th again. I think it's more going to be 8 or 9. So, like Temple, I think they'll be able to play some ugly games and catch some guys. But at the end of the day, I think that front court's going to be a real issue, defending the rim and getting to the rim for scoring. So, minor step back for Temple this year, but Adam Fisher should be able to bounce back. I know his record doesn't look good, but I think he's a good coach. So, a little step back for Temple this year, but I still think they'll be fine.
Yes, Temple super guard heavy this year. I expect them to probably go 4 out, 1 in, or maybe even some 5 guard rotations with a taller 6'7", 6'9" type of a guard forward there at the 5 position. In my notes I had written backcourt heavy, and so that kind of fits with what you guys have been saying. 2 other guards that I'll just mention that they brought in: Messiah Gilliard from Manhattan. Averaged 11 points, 7.5 rebounds. A guy that can really rebound the ball from the guard position, plays really good defense as well. So I think that's something that Coach Fisher is going to like in regards to Gilliard. And then another guy that I'll mention is Darian Ford, comes from Arkansas State. Averaged 8 points and career 35% 3-point shooter. So I think it's one of those things where he's going to be one of those guys where possibly a 3-and-D guy or just a guy that can really space the floor in that 4 out 1 in kind of scenario and be able to knock down shots as needed. One thing that I will mention though, doesn't really kind of pertain to any of the players or something, but it was just kind of a quote that I heard that Coach Fisher had said in regards to just the NIL portal and stuff. He said, "Culture is out, standards are in." And I think that was a perfect it was the epitome of the portal for me. It really sunk with me, and I really loved just that explanation. It's not about necessarily culture anymore of your team. It's maybe more of just the standards that you set for your team, just because, culture kind of takes time to build. And it's one of those things where nowadays players are only, in for 1, maybe 2 years. And so if you set standards within your program that your players know they have to abide by, I think that kind of goes a longer way than saying you're trying to develop this culture when you're just kind of having this carousel of players. So I really like that quote by him.
Yeah, I like Fisher. Excuse me. Tulane, the Green Wave out of New Orleans, Louisiana, 19-15, 12-6, finished 4th last year. 2 returning starters under Mr. Hunter, who led IUPUI back in the day, and also Georgia State, as we all know, from him falling off the wheelchair or whatever, the little seat thing. But yeah, Tulane, solid. I mean, tons of different talent that they retain and then also bring in as well too. So yeah, you bring back Rowan Brumbaugh, who could probably be All-American Player of the Year. He's just the centerfold of this team, and I think if that was without him, they would be at the bottom half of this conference. And now with him, they're at the top. And now you bring in all these pieces to complement him as well too, and KJ Green, um, who's from a role player last year, and then you bring in JoJo Moore from Oral Roberts as well to add it to the backcourt. Luke Rasmussen from Lafayette. So it's not necessarily awful. And then you also have Scotty Middleton, little P5 guy from Seton Hall and Ohio State. So some solid pieces added in by Tulane. I think they have one of the best talent, and they're going to be that run and gun. They don't necessarily need the size, even though they lack kind of that rebounding. They're going to try to get you into transition and not care about how fast you run either. They're just going to outrun you, which I like that Ron Hunter always focuses on shooting, and we know he's a great coach and a proven winner to work with what he got. And I think he has a lot of good talent here for sure. And shout out Ray McCallum. He was a Ball State coach. He coached Lawrence North High School. He's been all over the place. He's a solid assistant under Ron Hunter there. So I love the green wave, super high on the wave, and ride the wave through the crest or the trow, whatever it's called.
Yeah, Tulane, like Elliot said, they lost Greg Glenn III. So based on what Ron Hunter had said, it seems like they kind of stalled out and kind of just took a not really a break, but just didn't move forward at all in the summer. They were dealing with that, rightfully so. So sounds like they're a little behind the 8 ball in terms of off-season program and everything else, getting ready for the season. So maybe they start a little slow this year. Who knows? But that they brought in that Rawan Brumbaugh guy, like you guys were talking about. Dude's going to be great to run the offense. Absolutely great facilitator, ball handler, doesn't turn it over. So I think he's going to be a huge piece to this offense if he can step up in this conference and with this team and really get it humming. I think that's going to be a kickstart that they would need instead of having a guard who could turn it over and then they find themselves kind of struggling out the gate. But I think he's going to be a huge part to this team, and they're going to rely on him heavily to make the right choices and get this offense rolling. They got great size down low and in the wings. They got dudes that are big, that can bang, that can compete with others in this league. But will they be able to? I mean, they're coming in from different programs, so they got to adjust. But they're big. They have the physicality traits and ability to do so. So I think if they also are able to step up and be huge in the paint defensively and offensively, along with that Brumbaugh, I think this team could be solid. Especially with Ron Hunter at the helm. He's one of the premier coaches in this conference. So I think they'll be just fine. I think they'll kind of be hanging around where they were last year and have a chance. So big fan of the Green Wave this year. I think they're going to be solid.
You like their front court?
I think they have the ability to be good. I mean, these guys are physically, they're big and strong. So if they can hold their own and they can bang and compete and grab rebounds and keep guys off the glass, I think they'll be solid. But, they definitely do have the potential to just flop and not be good, which would kind of kill this team. Honestly, not having a down low presence. But I think they have the physicality traits that they can step up and compete with other teams in this conference.
Yeah, they just play that run and gun style, I feel like. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I can see it. I can see the pieces that they brought in. I'm with you there.
Yeah, I think they've got the talent there at the in the front court. However, I think they definitely lack the depth there in the front court. So I think that's why you're going to see, especially with this run and gun style, you'll see him tend to go more 4 out 1 in, kind of just like I said, the Temple was going to do here this year. Speaking of Ron Hunter and just his son RJ Hunter, who hit the 3 to make him fall out of the chair or the stool or whatever it was, but RJ is actually on staff this year as a graduate assistant or as a coach for him. So kind of cool that father son get to kind of coach together there at Tulane. But yeah, you guys bring Rowan Brumball. It was huge for them to bring him back this year. He was first team All American last year there at Tulane, and now the fact that they're able to keep him and not allow him to go up to a Power 4 rank was huge. And then you have the backcourt mate of Asher Woods, another guy averaged 11.5 points a game and shot a pretty high clip from three as well. So I think they're going to significantly rely upon those guards, be guard heavy, as you guys had discussed. Two kind of probable starters was that Scotty Middleton that you had mentioned from Seton Hall Huff, and then Curtis Williams Jr. Comes in from Georgetown, averaged about 4 points, 2 rebounds a game. He's definitely going to be a starter. I know Ron Hunter kind of saw him as a starter. And then that JoJo Moore that you brought up from Oral Roberts. If you guys remember Zion James from a few years ago who played at Tulane, that was kind of Ron Hunter's comparison to JoJo Moore. He thinks he kind of plays a similar game and style that Zion James did. So, I think they have a tremendously deep backcourt, very talented backcourt. I think it's going to be able to take them very far in this conference. And, the other thing I'll mention too is Davian Bradford. He's one of those big guys that they brought in, originally started at K-State and Wake, and then went to Wake, and now he's ETSU. He's a guy that I think that you can slot him in at the 5. He's 6'10", 6'11", but he's pretty mobile, so he can really run up and down the floor, and I think he'll fit that style well. So I look forward to seeing kind of what he does there at Tulane, kind of a lower mid-major than what he's been doing at the Power 5 ranks, besides being at ETSU last year. So yeah, I'm high on Tulane. Maybe a little bit of tragic magic as well. I know it's been a tough off season for Ron Hunter, but I do know that from one of the interviews, Ron Hunter, he said one of his last conversations with Greg Glenn was they were talking about how they were going to win the conference this year. And so after he passed, Ron was like, I got to be the best coach I can possibly be, do everything with 100% effort, because he wants to really win this conference for him and kind of honor him. So I think we might have a little bit of a tragic magic type of a deal here too, where the players and the team's going to be motivated to really give their all, just and kind of band together and make a good push to have a tremendous season in honor of Greg Glenn, and rightly so and deservedly so after what all they've been through.
All right, I got to skedaddle. I'll probably be back by the end though, so I'll see you guys.
Yeah, I mean, thoughts and prayers to Tulane. That stuff is tough. So. Life is precious every day. And yeah, thanks. Shout out. How about a cup of Joe? Good to see you back in the chat, my friend. Always love bantering with you. Our betting shows are almost upon us. We got a lot of takes coming up. We chopping up all the conferences. Raymond, always good to see you, my friend.
Joe, how's the WNBA going? I know you've been pretty heavy on the WNBA stuff. I think it just ended with the Aces winning, I believe.
Aces won, yeah. Mercury came back and kind of made it a game, though. But hey, man, that Kelsey Mitchell, man, wish she never got hurt. But
hope you're hitting those. Yeah, dude, that was the deal with that is crazy.
Next woman up on that case. That was
she was dealing with rhabdomyolysis, which is something to not fuck with. I will say
rhabdomyolysis. Well, that's
look it up.
That's something we will talk at the end about. That's Tulane Green Wave. We're pretty high on them. A team I'm not so high on, though, are the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes out of Tulsa, Oklahoma last season. 13-20, 6-12. What'd you say?
Where's the gold?
I don't know. I just always remembered them as Golden Hurricanes, so I'm putting Golden. Returning starters at 1, and then Eric Kanokel, 34 and 60, 3 years, hasn't been able to win. I don't know. No disrespect. I don't know about him, but he says that he's high on them. But I think that they are. This is his most talented team. I will say. They did win a conference tournament game last year, but I just felt like they just at times weren't competitive, and they got blown out a lot. I think defensively they lacked a a lot of physicality. They lacked a lot of just forcing turnovers. They didn't be able to do any of that. But you do bring in a piece of Terrence Ford Jr. from Arkansas State. I think is a massive piece addition as well. And then Miles Barnstable from St. Thomas. We know he can shoot. So added shooters for Tulsa, which is always a good thing. So I think he is high on the roster, bringing in a Rhode Island transfer and David Green. So a 6'7" forward. Little nice stretch four there. I think that, like I said, this is some of his most talented piece, and he definitely won in the portal. We'll see how they mesh. I like Tulsa. It's a team I always kind of like randomly like root for, but I think they're gonna struggle, man. I don't know if Knokel's no disrespect, but I don't know, something about it. I think they should be better than what they have been, and it's Eric Conkle, by the way. I don't know why I'm saying Knokel, but we always have typos here on the Pump Fake Pod, and we got called out for it today because I completely butchered. But that's what happens when we make 366 slides. And hand up. I'm wrong. I'm fine being wrong, but not wrong on my betting picks. So yeah, I don't think I'll be wrong on Tulsa either. I think they're gonna be at the bottom half of this conference yet again and really struggle. And talent wise, I do think this is their most talented team. But gel wise, I don't know. We'll have to see if Conkle can get it done.
Yeah, I mean, similar kind of rinse, wash, repeat type of a deal here in the American this year. 11 new people, only one returning starter. Seems like there's an overhaul of rosters with pretty much every single team. So, it's who's going to be able to get the best pieces in the portal or bring in some freshmen that are talented and ready to go at this level. But yeah, the one returning starter they bring back, Ian Smickle, averaged 5.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, shot about 54% from the field. I think he's going to have to play a bigger role, obviously. One other guy that I'll mention that they brought in that I really like was Miles Rigsby. Comes from Troy, really tough-nosed, defensive-minded kind of a guard, averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds for them. So he's someone that I expect for Tulsa to rely upon. And the one freshman to kind of keep an eye on here is Jalen Lawal. I think he can immediately make an impact here. He's a 6'3", 6'4" type of a guard. Coach is kind of high on him, thinks he can kind of provide some immediate production, thinks he's kind of game ready to begin with. So kind of maybe look out for him to take a step forward here and produce immediately as a true freshman. But yeah, I'm with you. Not super high on him, and you're right. With the I just don't know how sold I am on Conkle here. I don't necessarily think it's, Tulsa's never like a super good or super prideful program. So it's like, all right, can you say he's on a hot seat? I don't know. We'll see. But, it's weird because, I actually was just down at the University of Tulsa on Sunday watching my girlfriend coach softball. They played against the University of Tulsa, and the facilities are freaking awesome. They have a tremendous softball facility, tremendous tennis facility, all the facilities, really. All the athletics facilities are great. So you would think that he'd be able to, be a little bit more productive and be a little bit more accomplished and see a little bit more success. So I don't know. I'm curious to see, if he has another 13-20 season, kind of bottom of the conference there in the American, kind of how hot his seat gets, if it does, or if they're just kind of okay with mediocrity. It's just I don't think they are. You look at like the 90s, early 2000s, they were fairly good. Oklahoma, prideful basketball state. I'm from Kansas. I live right, just to the north. I've got a bunch of people. Oklahoma State. Bill Self came from Oklahoma State. Ed Sutton. Oklahoma State coach. It's a rich history in the basketball state. So you'd think a school that's in Oklahoma would care a little bit more about their basketball program. So we'll kind of see. But again, I'm right there with you. Not very high on them this year.
Shout out Tubby Smith, Raymond Burrows.
And mentioned Bill Self. I think he's the last one that led Tulsa to the NCAA tournament, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when Bill Self was the head coach there at Tulsa, that was the last time they made the
NCAA. They made the NCAA tournament since then, but Bill Self definitely did that. South Florida Bowl.
Did they go to the Sweet 16? Do you remember? I'm gonna look that up while you're talking. Go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. I'm drawing a blank on knowing that, so I was just trying to. I'm gonna start talking about South Florida, and then it'll come to me randomly. But I was like, yeah, I think it was something like that, Sweet 16 or whatnot. I mean, was it like 2001, 2000? But then Bill Self went to Illinois before he went to Kansas too.
Elite Eight with Tulsa. Thanks, Raymond.
What year? What year?
Elite Eight, 99, 2000 season. They lost to North Carolina.
Like 2000, and then he goes to Illinois, and then he went to Kansas. But
32-5. They were in the WAC then. Finished 32-5.
The WAC, they've touched it all. Yeah, Tubby Smith. So good programs there. For sure for Tulsa, but on to South Florida, out of Tampa, Florida, having a decent football season this year. Last season, 13-19, 6-12 in the American, tied for 9th. One returning starter under new coach Brian Hogston, as we mentioned earlier about the tragedy that occurred last season. It was such a tragedy as they had so much. They were a fun team to bet on. Pump Fake Pod scouted them, called them out early 2 years ago, and they were dogs. Yeah, I mean, they still competed last year. So, and I think that they have pretty good talent that they're going to improve upon. I think last year was just a kind of like shake up year. A lot going on. This is a rebound year. This is what happens. This is how you deal with grief. This is what happens, unfortunately. And now that you add in some other pieces as well, and go a little portal in a little bit as well, as you only bring back one returning starter, but you do bring. I'll shout out Devin Hyde from Central Connecticut State. I think he can score just immediately and make an impact as well. And a JUCO transfer in Wes Ennis, who shot 41% from three, 85% free throw shooter, 20 points per game. So added impact on shooting the ball, I think, is what they were lacking last year. And it's going to be a massive addition there, bringing in a Rob Morris piece and Josh Omajafo, and then Joseph Pinion of Arkansas State. So Hogston, they got the system built. They had it built with Abdur Rahim, and it's this leadership, I think, is unmatched and something that we don't talk about, that kind of in between the line stuff. And they're going to have a ton of depth and added in a bunch of talent. I really like this USF team. I think they're a well balanced team as well, and they may be a little feisty at the top half of this American conference, and taking a massive jump from last year's letdown.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. One thing I'll mention is UCF is really kind of bolstering their entire athletic programs, and the athletic department as a whole is really buying in and backing all these coaches. UCF actually had the ability to put all 15 players on scholarship, which is kind of unheard of. And then they not only, do you expect them to be, have a bounce back year in the American, but they're testing themselves early. They scheduled a tough non-conference. They play Alabama, which kind of, you could see that writing on the wall there with Hodgson and Nate Oates meeting up. But then they also play Oklahoma State, Utah State, College of Charleston, and George Washington. So testing themselves early and often. And I think that's a good thing for a team that, only has kind of one returner from last year in CJ Brown. I think they're going to be able to maybe struggle a little bit here early, but then kind of find their identity under Hodgson in his first year, and then really kind of be able to be successful and kind of add some wins and kind of stack some wins there in American Conference play. Guy that I'm high on, Josh Amojafo from Rob Morris. We saw him last year in the NCAA tournament. He played against Alabama and had a hell of a game, almost upset Alabama there in the tournament. And then he brings in, Hodgson brings in a couple of his own guys from Arkansas State. So don't feel like, where it says, they bring that one returning starter of CJ Brown and they bring in a shit ton more of returners. Don't feel like, they're all returners because he's bringing in a few of his pieces from Arkansas State with him. So kind of similar to what we had talked about earlier with Cleveland State. With the Cleveland State coach bringing in his players to North Texas. But yeah, I'm high on this Florida Bulls team. I definitely think that they are going to be above 500, both in regular season and also in conference play for sure, which puts them well within that top 6 of the American, is my belief.
All right, the UTSA Roadrunners out of San Antonio, Texas, last season 12-19. The Americans 6-12, tied for 9th. Yeah, what's up, dude?
Did you forget UAB, or you got them next?
Oh, I did forget UAB.
Okay.
I thought I had him though. Did I not?
Not sure. I just thought they were going to come before South Florida, but then I was like, well, maybe you alphabetized S in front because USF versus UAB. But then, so I thought you was doing South Florida, but I was like, well,
we'll hit UAB at the end then. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's.
I was just making sure. We'll bounce back to it. No worries.
UTSA, the Roadrunners out of San Antonio, Texas, last season 12-19, 6-12, tied for 9th. 0 returning starters under Austin Clonch's first year. It just felt like kind of a tough roster and talent wise. They've been having to do it. Clonch comes from Nicholls State, so familiar to the coaching realm. He's not necessarily new. It's just a new program, and now he's definitely got added to the American Conference. Going to have to figure out what it takes to win. They added a ton of athleticism to this team. I think that's what they were lacking. So a good front court additions. They have an okay back court, but again, I think talent-wise, they don't stack up to a lot of these teams that we're excited about. And one team that I forgot completely on the PowerPoint as well, and UAB and Andy Kennedy. So, I like this team, but I think they definitely could take a step up, and could be a wild card. But if I'm betting, I think they're at the bottom half of this bracket or conference.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you kind of look, they bring back the 2 brothers, the Najee brothers from last year, Mo and Boubacar, weren't very, productive last year there at UTSA. However, they do bring in some good pieces, in my opinion, and Vashawn Alette from TCU, he's the transfer point guard, was averaging, 11.5 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists for them. And then they also bring in a couple guys from the Big 12 rank with Arizona State. They bring in Austin Nunez. And then they also bring in a guy from Barton Community College here in Kansas, Brent Moss. I'm pretty high on him as well. He's a guy that kind of does it all, averaged 17 points, 10 rebounds there at the JUCO level. And his freshman year, Barton was pretty good. I think they almost repeated as the JUCO national champion. They won it 2. I'm trying to think. Let me see. They won it 2 years ago, I believe. So he might have been a freshman or a redshirt freshman on that team. So he is a proven winner, at least at the JUCO ranks, and he was second team all NJCAA Division I All-American last year. So just kind of shows the talent that he has. And I just looked it up. He was on Barton. He was a freshman when they won the national title. So he was a part of that national championship team. And then they also bring a guy from K-State, actually, that I was actually high on, and I was disappointed that we lost, Makalia Rich. Call him Buddy Rich. He's from East St. Louis. He's a dude that I'll share a couple of highlights on my Twitter here afterwards because he is ridiculously athletic. Had some nasty putback dunks. I think he's got like a 45, 46-inch vertical. He is just a ridiculous jumper. But he's 6'7", 245 pounds, brick shit house, kind of like a tight end. He averaged 6 points, 2.5 rebounds. Never really saw the floor. Only played about 11 minutes for us last year. But I was really impressed when he produced those minutes. And when he was on the floor, I wanted Coach Tang to really play him more because I thought he brought an energy and was able to, but he just had some defensive lapses. So, he comes down to a little bit less of a talented league, and I think that he can really use his athleticism. He's also a decent shooter, just didn't shoot it enough last year from 3. So I expect that Clonch, I think, is ready for him to kind of shoot a little bit more this year. I think he was like a 56% three-point shooter, but only was like 4 of 7 or 5 of 8 or something like that last year. So I always like following my guys from K-State that end up transferring out just to kind of see how they do in different programs. And I think is going to be successful here and do fairly well for UTSA. With that being said, I agree with you. I think they brought in some talent. However, I don't think, the sum of the entire talent, especially maybe in the front court, is really enough to keep them competitive to be at the front half of this conference, where I see maybe they're around that similar tied ninth spot there. Similar record, we'll kind of see. But, Coach Clonch there, he's a great coach. 90 wins in 5 seasons at Nichols. He knows how to win. He also knows how to deal with all of the players leaving because that's all they did with Nichols being so successful. Every year he had to, refill his roster and retool his roster because of the pieces that he was missing in the transfer portal. So, it's his second year. I think he takes a small step forward, but I would look out for them here in the future if he remains their coach, because I just think that he's a proven winner, and he's shown that at Nichols.
Sorry, my technology's been really shitty today. Yeah, Trevor, we're talking UTSA. Okay. I'm with you. It's just, yeah, talent wise, I used to love this team. It wasn't Marcus Howard, but I can't remember. I think maybe it was. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. They had an absolute dog that could just score. He was fun to watch, and they were a slight betting team that I love betting on. So. Yeah, Trevor, I don't know what your thoughts are on UTSA. You got any? You missed South Florida. If you got any thoughts on South Florida as well.
Let me pull up my stuff. UTSA, they got dismantled by the portal. They lost everybody good. They brought in a ton of new guys, and freshmen too. So it's gonna take some time to get that figured out, in my opinion. I think it's gonna take some time. But, I mean, they did bring in some decent pieces that have potential. So if they can kind of figure it out, maybe they'll be all right. But I just think with the roster turnover, losing all your guys, and now you're bringing in new players and getting this figured out in a second-year coach's system, I think it could take a little bit. I think UTSA could struggle a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as good as they were last year. And being good last year was kind of a stretch. So, yeah, I'm not incredibly high on UTSA this year. I don't think they're going to be the worst. I don't think they're going to be Charlotte, but I don't think they're going to be sexy.
What do you think of South Florida, too? I mean, under Hodgson, I think we're pretty high on them taking a step up. Would you tend to agree on that, too?
South Florida, let me pull up my notes. South Florida, yeah. Hodge returning starter, which is solid. But I mean, overall, they got, it's South Florida. They have NIL money, and they do bring in some decent what do you call them, portal pieces. I mean, Pinion's coming in from Arkansas State. He was really good last year. He came with Hodgson or whatever, but I think they'll be fine. I mean, Hodgson's a good coach. I mean, he had Arkansas State competing, brings a couple of his guys, and you got an NIL fund from USF that, maybe this year wasn't elite or anything, but they do have the ability to, and we have seen this for years in the past. So I think they'll be fine. I think it's going to take a little bit to figure out, but I still think USF is going to be decent given Hodges in there, and he's a good coach. So I'm fairly high on them. I don't think they're going to compete for the conference or anything, but I do think they're going to find themselves middle of the pack, maybe a little above.
All right, UAB, the Blazers out of Birmingham, Alabama. I've been there on that campus a couple times. A lot of good barbecue. Last season, 24-13, 13-5 in the American Conference, and all new faces, but not new for premier coach Andy Kennedy and UAB alumni, 125 and 50, entering year number 6. He's been a winner, knows how to win in this conference, and has always been able to work with what he got, and that it's talent. He does bring in a decent amount of pieces from the JUCO level and D2, so it's definitely a lot of that. UAB on the lower end of NIL, but always been able to scout talent, especially at that level, is key. So you do bring in a couple pieces, which is always nice in the front court to help. For the pieces that you lose, the pieces you lost were detriment or going to be detrimental, but those JUCO guys and D1 positions are always key. I think point guard will be led from a transfer from Mercer and Ahmad Robinson. Ahmad Robinson will be demanding that front backcourt immediately, and Kennedy will trust in him to get the pushing going into transition. As we know, Andy Kennedy loves that and doesn't mind running and gunning. So an NIT berth last year with a lot of good talent. This is going to be definitely a build-up year, but I still think the Blazers are going to be able to win just based on their style of play, and coaches matter, but maybe a slight step back in the standings.
No returning players whatsoever for Andy Kennedy and company this year. They attack the JUCO ranks again. They've done this every year, basically under Kennedy. He finds these really talented players, and it works. I mean, we've seen the success over. I know they had who's the big man? Went to Michigan. Lindenborg. I know they had Lindenborg. He was huge for that team, but over the years, they've brought in a lot of JUCO guys and had a lot of success. So I think those guys will end up clicking. I mean, on paper, they look like solid players. They have great size. He brought Ahmad Robinson in from Mercer, 17 points a game, 5 boards, 5 assists. So for a point guard, those are pretty good stats. He's going to be able to run the offense and facilitate just fine and get downhill. But I think they'll be all right. I don't know if they're going to be third again, obviously. I think they'll be kind of more middle of the pack, sixth or so, but I think UAB will be fine. Kennedy's done this year in and year out, but losing Lindenborg's a huge missing piece for this team that I think is going to they're going to struggle with and take some time. So I'm fairly high on them. I think they'll be middle of the pack, but they're definitely not going to be a basement dweller or anything under Andy Kennedy. And Kennedy's a good coach. If this clicks, they could easily find themselves, sitting 4th or 5th, maybe even 3rd again if everything goes perfectly for them this season. But I have them finishing more towards the middle.
Yeah, I just shout out what a fantastic job that Andy Kennedy's done since he's came over to UAB and kind of taken the helm here as the head coach. They've played in 4 straight conference title games here in the American Conference. The last 5 years, all 5 years that he's been there, the 125 wins that ties them for 11th in Division I in that span of time for most wins at the D1 level. So a fantastic job. So what he's doing is, is working. And like you said, he's continuing to do it. They are recruiting early at the JUCO level and recruiting early at the high school level as well, and kind of signing players early, and then kind of attacking people. I found it interesting. He said that his philosophy was more to kind of lowball the players and find the players that really want to actually play for him rather than take the money. And I thought that was kind of an interesting philosophy in a time now where it's all these players are wanting more and more and more. And so maybe that's a philosophy that's working for him. Obviously, it's been working these 5 years that he's been here at UAB. And like you said, they attacked the JUCO ranks very heavily. They also attacked some transfers in the mid-major ranks. One in particular that all kind of stands out for me was Daniel Rivera at UMass, averaged 12 points, 7.5 rebounds last year. Kind of an interesting situation with him. He was, as everybody knows, Frank Martin coaches at UMass. Anyway, Rivera decided to leave UMass because he thought he was going to be able to get more money. And I think it's kind of the Nico situation, one of the Nico situations of the kind of where he was trying to get more money, and ended up he couldn't find more money and got stuck. And UMass wasn't going to take him back. So Frank Martin actually did him a solid, called up his friend Eddie Kennedy, who he knew was looking for a front court piece. And he was like, hey, you should take this kid. They kind of talked, and sure enough, they slotted him in. I think they signed him in July, or he came on in July. So kind of a cool thing for Frank Martin to do for a guy that transferred out of your program to help him out and get him into a solid winning program. So just shout out to him. Kind of a cool story. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm high on UAB. You see it. It's the proof is in the pudding. 125 and 50 in the last 5 years there. He knows what he's doing, even if he has to return literally everybody, including Yaxel. I think he's going to be able to return enough players and have enough talent and be able to coach up that talent to be successful yet again in the American.
All right. Last team in the conference, Wichita State, the Shockers out of Wichita, Kansas. 13 and 19, 8 and 10, and 8th in the conference with 0 returning starters. Just a familiar sight, like I mentioned, and a reoccurring theme here in the American Conference. Paul Mills, his 3rd year, completely average, 34 and 34. A destined program, a lot of history under Coach Marshall, and a lot of good players that we can name, and a lot of people think Ron Baker's a fucking now one of those like names that people are random. I'm like, no, that's not happening. But you do bring in probably a newcomer, one of the best newcomers in this conference, and Kenyon Giles. I think he's going to make an immediate impact and get this Wichita State team up. They just lack defense, and I feel like they lack perimeter pressure. Just athleticism overall. Watching them, I felt like they just kind of lacked toughness. And I think that Giles will be able to give them a little energy along with some other pieces that they add were definitely huge. One of the better backcourts in this conference. Talent-wise, I think they definitely stack up to a lot of teams that we mentioned where you guys can touch on some of these portal pieces. But, yeah, Kenyon Giles, I mean, like I said, going to make an immediate impact, and we'll see if Wichita State can take that jump under Paul Mills in year 3.
Yeah, lost 12 players from last season, including all the starters. So that's brutal. But, yeah, getting Kenyon Giles to run the offense is going to be huge. They added a lot of seniors and juniors from the portal. So a lot of experience coming into Wichita State, which is going to help them. They got Will Berg from Purdue, and then Emmanuel or Karaker for whatever the hell. From Seton Hall to replace Ballard in Washington. So if those guys are able to pick up the slack a little bit, obviously replacing what those two brought might not be possible given the situation. But if they can bang, they can rebound and play defense in the paint. I think they have enough experience and guard play around them to really compete in this conference. So I'm fairly high on Wichita. I mean, I know it's a lot of newcomers, but it's a lot of high major players also. So I think having that experience coming in is going to be a plus for them. So I got them top 3 in this conference. I think by the end of the year, they'll have it figured out. Paul Mills is a solid coach. So big fan of what they added. I think they're going to be solid in the conference this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this team. Our family, we still have season tickets, so I venture my way down there when K State's not playing and go watch a couple games in the Roundhouse. This is kind of the second team that I root for. My second favorite team. I'm a K State diehard fan through and through, but Wichita State's kind of near and dear to me as well. Growing up just outside of Wichita, kind of in that Ron Baker, Evan Wessel, Fred VanVleet era. So, but yeah, in terms of coach, Coach Mills, I think he also made one of the best decisions was maybe not bringing in a player. It was actually bringing in a coach. Brings in Coach Eilert. Was at West Virginia, took over for was it Huggins when he had to step down and took over for him at West Virginia, and then he ended up going and getting the job at Utah for a year. But now he's the assistant coach there at Wichita State with Paul Mills, and I think that was a good hire for him. I think he's going to be a solid assistant coach for them. And you'd mentioned Kenyon Giles. One thing that Paul Mills likes, he says, think Pierre Jackson from Baylor back when Paul Mills coached Pierre Jackson. Think Max Amos from Oral Roberts when Paul Mills was the head coach at Oral Roberts. That's kind of the style of play and kind of the guard that he kind of thinks resembles in Kenyon Giles. They also bring in Karan Boyd from East Tennessee State. He was the SoCon Defensive Player of the Year last year. Michael Gray Jr. from Nichols, a 3-and-D guy, averaged 11 points a game, shot 41% from the three. He really emphasized exactly what you said they lacked last year, Huff. Just that defensive pressure, defense on the outside of the arc, especially with their guards. And we're used to seeing a Wichita State team with that mantra of play angry under Greg Marshall, and it's kind of been lost here in the last few years. And I think he made the pieces, or he brought in the pieces in the portal to really kind of focus and emphasize that defensive-minded approach. Another guy, Brian Enyumike from Fresno State, another guy that shoots above 40% from the three as well. He also brings in Will Berg and Emmanuel Okafor, like you were talking about, Trevor. I think that's going to be, like you were saying, that's going to be the thing. Is it's going to separate them from being top four versus being kind of in the middle, like 5 to 8. Is if they can take a step up. I know they're kind of coming down from the higher Power 5 level. If they can perform and produce and be able to be physical, get rebounds, and not only produce on the offensive end a little bit, because they got good guards that will produce offensively, but just be kind of the defensive anchor to the team. I think the sky's the limit for this team. I think he's kind of put together a good team here in the portal that he's had to return basically. He basically returned nobody besides a couple guys from Wichita. And name to keep out for TJ Williams, redshirted last year, had a knee injury. He was the Kansas Player of the Year a couple years ago, 6'5" guard. Paul Mills likes what he sees in him, so I think he can kind of carve out a significant role for them as well coming off the bench.
I didn't like Paul Mills under late game scenarios, but anyway, that's the American Conference. We're going to go top to bottom or bottom up here. I believe 13 teams in this conference, so we will go from 13 to 1. Again, we are the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. This was our 21st conference preview. All previews are recorded, and timestamps are in there, hopefully. And then everything else, you can find every team, every conference, no matter what. So make sure to drop a like, and thanks for tuning in the chat, everyone. And all our predictions will be posted on Twitter and a little nice graphic as well. So let's get into it. Number 13, how we feeling? I think we all may be feeling the same 13 at least. I'll go ahead and kick us off. Charlotte 49ers.
Charlotte for me as well.
Yep, Charlotte.
How could I guess? All right, here's where I think we may end up differing. Number 12, UTSA.
I'll go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Tulsa.
UTSA for me as well.
Okay. Number 11 for me is going to be Rice.
Number 3 or whatever for me is going to be UTSA.
Rice for me.
All right. Number 10 for me is going to be Tulsa.
Yeah, I've got UTSA here.
Temple for me.
For number 10.
Yep.
All right. Number 9 for me is FAU.
I've got Tulsa, or not Tulsa. What's shit, just had them here. I just had them. Why?
Go ahead.
Fuck, hold on. Yeah, go ahead. I got to restart my notes. It just froze.
Tulsa for me. 9.
All right. Yeah, we're on number 9, Trevor.
Yep. And there it is. Rice.
All right. And 8 for me is going to be shit. I've been kind of undecided. I was really undecided on these top 5 teams. I think I'm gonna go. Against my better judgment, I'm gonna go North Texas here.
All right, I'll go. I've got UAB here.
Another 3-letter acronym, FAU.
Number 7 for me is Temple.
Temple for me as well.
7, North Texas.
Actually, I'm going to flip-flop UAB and Temple. I think Andy Kennedy can figure it out with that roster still.
So we're on number 6 now, right? Correct. Yep. Number 6 for me is going to be Wichita State.
Number 6 for me is FAU.
East Carolina for me.
Number 5 for me is East Carolina.
I have East Carolina here as well.
5, Wichita State.
4 for me is UAB.
I've got North Texas.
4, UAB.
3 for me is going to be USF.
I've got Tulane.
Memphis.
For the 3 spot. Wow.
Correct.
Number 2 for me is going to be Tulane, and number 1 is going to be Memphis. I think they have the talent to get it done yet again. So we'll see if they end up clicking. But I think Tulane could steal this conference tournament.
I could see, honestly, a couple of teams. Just given what was lost everywhere.
I love this conference. It was really tough to pick them.
Yeah. I got Memphis 2, Wichita State 1.
I've got USF 2, Tulane 1.
All right, let's go. Number 1 for me, Memphis. 2, Tulane. 3, USF. 4, UAB. 5, ECU. 6, Wichita State. 7, Temple. 8, North Texas. 9, FAU. 10, Tulsa. 11, Rice. 12, UTSA. And 13, Charlotte.
Yeah, 1 Wichita, 2 Memphis. I realized I didn't even pick USF. Yeah, so I'll throw USF at 3. I had to go back and listen. I don't remember what I picked, what order. I don't rank these down. I rank them as we go. So I'll have to go back and listen to whatever the hell it was. I don't have a pen over here to be writing these down today.
I've got 1 Tulane, 2 USF, 3 Memphis, 4 UAB, 5 Wichita State, 6 East Carolina, 7 North Texas, 8 FAU, 9 Tulsa, 10 Temple, 11 Rice, 12 UTSA, and 13 Charlotte.
All right. That's the American Conference, baby. Thanks for everyone for tuning into the chat. We just chopped up our 21st conference preview. Like I've said, make sure to like and subscribe to the @PumpFakePod. This is I'm Michael_Huffer3. That's @StooleyPicks, @Trevor Vandenbosch Jones, and then Elliot Money @IM_Money. So we're balling. We're talking hoops. And we're back tomorrow, and then we're off until next week. And then the following week, we'll finish up previews. And then that last week in October, going over all things futures and conference picks, and or more than conference picks, but just the whole thing in general. And then kind of discuss our future and how we're going to deploy our picks as well, too, outside of just the podcast. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This is the American Conference. We are the Pump Fake Pod. Appreciate everyone tuning in. You guys are the best.
Doodles.